NHRA, the world's largest motorsports sanctioning body, showcasing speeds in excess of 290 miles an hour and traveling the quarter mile in less than 5 seconds. Championship drag racing from the NHRA. More than 2/3 of the 19-event NHRA Winston Championship drag racing season has been completed. The $18 million series last stopped in Northern California at Sears Point International Raceway at Sonoma and the Motorcraft Ford California Nationals. In Top Fuel, reigning Winston champion Gary Ormsby won his 4th event of the year. In the final, he met the #1 qualifier, Frank Hawley, driving Darrell Gwynn's car. Ormsby left the starting line just slightly ahead of Hawley and pulled out the win with a 5.09-second elapsed time, 278-mile-an-hour charge. In winning Sonoma, Ormsby captured the Winston points lead from Joe Amato, who red-lighted in round 2. Further behind, Dick LaHaye, Laurie Johns, and Gene Snow. In funny car, John Force once again displayed the dominance that has vaulted him to a strong series lead over Ed McCulloch. Force's opponent in the California Nationals final was reigning Winston funny car champion Bruce Larson, who was unable to get past Force to take his first win of the year. The time, Force 5:44 at 270, Larson close at 5:47 268. Force extended his lead over the rest of the field with 5 victories thus far this season. Pro Stock Racing pitted the Ford of Bob Glidden against the Dodge of Darrell Alderman in the final. Alderman had a slight advantage at the starting line, then sped to the finish as Glidden had driveline problems. Alderman ran 7:35 at 188 for his 2nd win this season. Bob Glidden, usually so dominant by this time of the year, is only 5th in points. The championship trail now moves to the Great Northwest and the 3rd annual Jolly Rancher Candies Northwest Nationals at Seattle International Raceway in Kent, Washington. Hello, everybody. I'm Dave McClellan, and welcome to Seattle International Raceway. For the 2nd race in a row, bright sunshine and blue skies has greeted an overflow crowd that has jammed every nook and cranny of this facility. Right now, let's go next door to the pit area of John Force and join my good friend Steve Evans and find out what's transpired thus far.
Thank you very much, David. Earlier on this picture-perfect day in the Puget Sound region, the fans witnessed the first round of professional competition, and there was not a single upset, and that's rare in this hectic season. Every car you'd predict to win won, but over the past 2 days of qualifying, there have been some highlights. Frank Hawley in the Darrell Gwynn car qualified #1 in Top Fuel and simultaneously joined the 4-second club at 4.98.
I'm excited to be there because Darrell obviously was a member of the 4-second club, and now this car has put 2 drivers in that club.
And certainly, the highlight of funny car qualifying here in Kent, Washington was John Force, who, as Dave mentioned, won the last race in Sears Point, California. Force just obliterated the track record at 5:22. And there was a lowlight in funny car qualifying. Eastern Warrior Frank Kramberger, on his first trip west, found that things can get mighty hot out here in more ways than one. Especially if you burn up an engine, the oil catches the body on fire, and you're riding along in an inferno. Kramberger escaped out of the hatch with only minor burns to his left arm.
I was pedaling out in the middle. It blew up, came apart, and the fire just kept getting worse and worse. I pulled all the levers that I had at my disposal, and that was the end of that. Game time.
Speaking again of John Force and crew, things are not perfect here. He had low ET in round #1 at 5:33 over Jim Murphy, but they're having to feed this car a brand new supercharger each and every run. It has a very short fuse, and just before the finish line, it blows that first panel out. The fire then gets all the spark plug wires and occasionally some of their computer wiring. Having to put a new blower on is not an idyllic situation. It can ruin your consistency, and that's what's been winning for John Force. David?
Steve will be keeping an eye on that John Force car and see if his crew chief Austin Coyle can solve this very expensive problem. Let's now pick up the racing action in round number 2 of Pro Stock Eliminator. This is Scott Jeffreyon. He is at the wheel of an Oldsmobile Cutlass. He had an outstanding qualifying effort coming in the number 13 spot in this very tough field. The Huntington Beach driver ran a 7:41. His competition in the first round was Darrell Alderman at the wheel of the Dodge, the number 4 qualifier and the most recent winner on the NHRA National Event Trail just a week earlier. Alderman had a 7:35 in qualifying, certainly good enough to give him a favorite's role in this round 1 race. We rode along with Alderman as he pulled the levers, shifting the gears. But what Alderman saw was Scott Jeffreyon pulling past him and taking that first round win. Here in round 2, it is Jeffreyon against Mark Powick, the national record holder. He qualified 5th at a 7:36. He beat Butch Leal in his first round race. Jeffreyon in the lane nearest the camera. Powick's Oldsmobile on the far side of the track. The advantage off the starting line, a huge one to Jeffreyon, but the quicker time to Powick and the victory to Mark. 7:39, 185 miles an hour, a 7:50 the losing time for Jeffreyon. As we look again, watch the car in the near lane. See how quickly it moved ahead of Mark Powick. That advantage was nearly 0.08 of a second. But the difference in times at the finish line was 0.11 of a second, more than enough to let Mark Powick by and take the victory. Let's go to Steve Evans.
I tell you, Mark, Scott Jeffreyon gave you all you wanted and more up the starting line.
Yeah, he's a tough driver, Steve, and after getting a whole shot first round and beating Butch, I was a little laxed, I guess, and shouldn't have been, you know. I knew we were going to run better. We didn't run very good first round.
Don't you try to go up and do the same thing every round, or do you think about the opponent?
No, I really try to do the same thing every round, but it's really tough. I'll tell you, man, you know, you see all these people looking at you, and you try to focus all your concentration on a tree, and sometimes just that split instinct just blows you away.
Heck, if it was easy, I didn't do it.
You're welcome.
No.
I'll take the win, boy. We need it.
Oh, come on, Steve. The 1990 NHRA Jolly Rancher Candies Northwest Nationals is being brought to you by Quaker State. The Big Q is One Tough Motor Oil. And by Ford and your Ford dealer. Have you driven a Ford lately? And by Budweiser, Beechwood Aged for that clean, crisp taste. This Bud's for you. More Pro Stock Racing 3. It was a flyover by the world-famous Blue Angels Navy Precision Flying Team. Our sincere thanks to a great team, the U.S. Navy Blue Angels. You're riding with Bob Glidden as he is backing up after his long burnout in the Motorcraft Ford Probe. His competitor, a long-time rivalry between these two men, is Ricky Smith at the wheel of the STP Pontiac. Known by his fellow competitors and fans alike as Tricky Ricky, Smith qualified in the number 11 spot with a 7:39 and beat Bruce Allen in round 1. Glidden, meantime, qualified 3rd with a 7:34. He beat the Chevy of Gary Herman in his first round race. The burnouts are completed, both drivers concentrating on the starting line and the procedures necessary to gain an advantage if possible. The Ford in the far lane, the Pontiac in the near lane. Glidden psyching himself up. The throttle to the floor, and the clutch is out. Glidden pulling the levers on the Lenco transmission in the far lane. Pulls ahead of Ricky Smith and takes the win. His son Rusty reacts to the victory as Bob turns a 7.36 second elapsed time. His speed 187 miles an hour. The losing time for Smith, a 7:44. Watch again. You just saw a perfect light by Ricky Smith. 0.400 reaction time. 77 thousandths of a second quicker than Glidden off the starting line. That meant Bob had to rely on the power of the Ford to pull out a victory by just inches over Ricky Smith. Our next two cars starting their burnout procedure. It's a pair of Pontiacs. As they continue, let's go to the far end. Steve Evans.
Bob, it appears so far that maybe the princess of luck in the racing world is smiling on you for a change at 36.
The princess could stand to smile on me, Steve. You know, it's been frowning on me all year. We've run a little better the second round, I guess, than the first round, but we had some problems. We've been having problems all year.
Problems today in what area?
Well, we've been fighting the engine miss problem all year, and doing that, we've got everything else messed up. Clutch combinations, and we're lost.
All right. Well, I think you're partially found now, looking at that.
Steve, Bob was exactly right. He was 0.05 of a second quicker in round 2 than his first round victory. Here now, the pair of Pontiacs, Jerry Ekman in the Pennzoil Trans Am. Alongside of him, Jim Yates, wheeling the Fram Bendix Autolite Pontiac Firebird. Into the staging beams, and Jim Yates pulls a giant hole shot. And holds on for an upset victory. Yates with a 7:42 over a quicker 7:38 by Ekman, and the man that's number 2 in points, Jerry Ekman, is now on the sidelines, and here is how it happened as we watch in replay. A huge advantage at the starting line by Jim Yates in the near lane made all the difference at the finish line, even though Jerry Ekman was able to put together a quicker elapsed time down his lane of the racetrack. It didn't matter. Yates held on for the victory. There are the times in the parentheses, the reaction time. Look at the big advantage for Yates. Ekman's elapsed time not enough to overcome it. On the starting line, a pair of Oldsmobiles. Warren Johnson at the wheel of the AC Delco Cutlass is the current Winston points leader. His competition, Larry Morgan driving the Castrol Olds, the winningest driver in Pro Stock this season. He has a total of 4 victories to his credit. He qualified here, number 8 at a 7:38, and beat Joe Lapone in round 1. Warren Johnson was the number 1 qualifier with 7.30, a new track record. He beat last year's low qualifier, the number 16 car, Don Beverly, in his first round matchup. Morgan, currently ranking 3rd in the Winston point standings, could make a big move if he were able to put away Johnson in this race. The RPMs begin to mount, and a red light start for Morgan. Warren Johnson advances to the final 4 with an easy victory and a great elapsed time. 7.33 seconds. His speed 188 miles an hour. What a disappointment it has to be for Larry Morgan. He left the starting line too soon, was disqualified by the red light, giving the race to Johnson and advancing him to the final 4 to race Mark Powick. Johnson's quicker elapsed time gives him lane choice. Jim Yates will race Bob Glidden, and the Ford of Glidden gets to pick the lane.
They're red lighting against you now, Warren. 7:33 for you. He had to try a hole shot. You had him outrun.
Yeah, I had a little bit of advantage from the first round ET, so I think Larry just tried everything he could, and he just, got on a red light. He didn't intentionally red light. He just tried to shave it as close as possible.
Warren Johnson continuing to extend his points lead. In the pit area, they're working on Joe Amato's top fueler. He'll be racing Gary Ormsby. In the final 4 of Top Fuel, we'll be picking up that action just a little bit later. Raceway in the Jolly Rancher Candies Northwest Nationals. We're ready for round number 2 of funny car action. This is Richard Hartman. Driving the Ray Bestis Special, owned by Nick Bonenfante, he has to challenge Mark Oswald. The Motorcraft Ford probe of Candies and Hughes, driven by Oswald, has been in a giant slump. It has been since Memphis and the Mid-South Nationals that Mark Oswald, a former Winston champion, has visited the winner's circle on the NHRA trail. For Hartman, he has yet to win his first NHRA title. He has finished runner-up twice, once last year, once this season. Hartman is the role model for young race fans everywhere. At the age of 22, he is the youngest hired driver in the sport. From his number 5 qualifying position, he beat Jerry Caminito in the first round. Oswald qualified 4th with a 5:37. He beat Art Hendy in his first round confrontation. Now Oswald on the far side of the track. Hartman inching forward into the staging beams here in the near lane. infrared beams stretch across the starting line on both sides of the track. As the car comes forward, the wheel rolls into those beams and lights the bulbs on the top of the tree. When the second light is lit, that means the driver's ready. Starter Buster Couch throws the switch. It's a close race. And Mark Oswald, by just inches, takes the victory. His elapsed time, 5:33, 274 miles an hour. Richard Hartman had a very close 5:37 at 270. In replay, we can see a very slight advantage gained by Hartman, just about 0.02 of a second in reaction time. But it was the power of the forward probe of Mark Oswald that made the difference in this race. His 5:33 elapsed time allowed him a margin of victory of about a half a car length. Steve?
Well, Mark, now you're running numbers you can win with, at least work with, 5:33.
Yeah, it felt a lot better. We just haven't gotten that clutch in the car, and you know, this track is awful good, and it pulls the clutch out of the car, and we're finally catching up to it.
You know, the competition tells me they hope you never find that clutch secret with the horsepower you're capable of making.
They better not, the mood I'm in after the little slump we've been in here lately. We got to come back hard.
Okay, he goes to the Final Four.
And it sounds like Mark Oswald's ready to go for the throat of every other funny car racer out here. Here's Jim White at the wheel of the Hawaiian Punch Dodge Daytona, owned and tuned by Roland Leong. His competition, the man that's number 2 in the Winston Points chase, right behind John Force, the Miller High Life Oldsmobile of Ed McCulloch. McCulloch qualified number 7. His time was a 5:42. He beat Scott Coletta in round 1. Jim White was the number 2 qualifier with a 5.30. He beat Dale Pulvey in his first round race. And now it is White in the near lane and McCulloch in the far lane. The burnout's completed under the watchful eye of starter Buster Couch. White and McCulloch pull into those staging beams. They're set. Just powers past the advantage gained off the starting line by Jim White. McCulloch a 5:36, 267 miles an hour, but he cannot afford to be that late very often as Jim White had a gigantic hole shot. Well, I'm Dave McClelland along with Steve Evans, and we're continuing with round number 2 of Funny Car Eliminator. As the burnouts proceed, let's go to the far end of the racetrack where Steve Evans is with Ed McCulloch.
You and this 31-year-old racetrack go back a lot of years.
Well, there's a lot happened here. It seems like we used to do pretty good a long time ago, and it's been a long time since we've done well at Seattle, and we've got a lot of family and a lot of friends and, you know, a lot of people up here that would really like to do well today, so we're trying hard.
No, yeah, good luck.
After a close call in round number 2 against Jim White, Ed McCulloch is now headed to the Final Four. Coming back after his long, smoky burnout, this is Tom Hoover. The entire Hoover family on hand as always to try to guide their son to the winner's circle. The Pontiac Trans Am bodied car of Hoover qualified in the 9th spot with a 5:45 elapsed time. He beat Glenn Micris in round number 1. John Force driving his Castrol Oldsmobile to the number 1 qualifying position with that brilliant 5:22, beat Jim Murphy in his first round race. John Force coming into the staging beams. Alongside of him, Tom Hoover going through the same procedure. Force the last to stage. He is ready. A good start by both drivers. Hoover having some problems, and John Force thundering across the finish line with you on board. Runs an elapsed time of 5:39. His speed, 258 miles an hour. Back at the starting line, the engine is idling, and the crewman latches the body down on the Winston champion, Bruce Larson. Driving the Sentry Tack Engage's Oldsmobile, he gets set to heat up the tire. The only way these 17-inch wide racing tires function is to get them hot. And the only way you can do it is to actually burn rubber, smoke the tires on the long burnout that has become the trademark of NHRA championship drag racing. Steve?
For the first time in a few runs, that burst plate and that blower belt are still on John Force's supercharger. But, John, it may have been because you clicked it off just a little early.
Well, I didn't see Hoover at all, and Coyle said save her because she's got a short wick on her, and it's kind of tough when you're trying to outrun these guys in the crew chief. he's got to try to outrun a race motor, and that's what Coyle's doing. He's doing a real good job.
5:39. Everybody else so far has run quicker than that in this round.
She fell off, but she had low there in the first, and I wanted to click it early to give my guys a little bit of break between rounds, so they had a chance to look over little things and let Coyle have a time to think what he's going to do.
Give your pocketbook a break. Those blowers aren't cheap.
Yeah, I hear you there.
Steve, John constantly keeps the costs in mind, with a blower going between $3,500 and $4,000 each today. He doesn't want to pop very many of them. Casey Spurlock's crew chief Ron Swearingen taking a final look at that engine, with a complete copy today. He'll set you back about 40 grand. He tuned KC to the number 3 qualifying spot at 5.30. He beat Al Hoffman in the first round. Bruce Larson qualified 6th with a 5.40. He defeated Mark Sievers in his first round race. His crew chief Maynard Yates waving Bruce forward into the staging beam. On the far side of the track, KC Spurlock at the wheel of the Adidas Gambler Ford Probe pulls his car forward. A tremendous race, and Spurlock with problems. That fire continuing to burn, and Spurlock having his hands full getting the car stopped. The blaze coming out from underneath the car. You see the emergency hatch opening up. That's Spurlock inside the car trying to get out. As it heads over towards the guardrail, Spurlock comes out into the fresh air and rolls out of the car. The NHRA safety safari disappearing into that cloud of smoke where KC Spurlock has scrambled to safety. The fire department on the scene, extinguishing the fire. Let's look again exactly what happened. The victory went to Bruce Larson. His time was a 5:38, but right at the finish line, the Ford Probe of KC Spurlock burst into flame. Knowing that Bruce Larson was in the lane opposite him, Spurlock did a great job in keeping his car in the center of his lane, even though his vision was impaired by the mounting flames and increasing amounts of smoke. As the car came through the shutdown area, the smoke began to build, indicating the fiberglass body had caught fire on the inside. Spurlock tried to burn off some speed by getting the car sideways. Then, as it headed towards the guardrail, he popped open the emergency hatch, stuck his head out for some fresh air, and rolled off the roof of the car as it came to a stop against the guardrail. As Spurlock hit the ground, the safety safari was on the scene. The emergency medical technicians immediately began tending to Spurlock, and it appears that he is okay. Steve Evans?
David, I have to tell you that every driver who was on the return road, who had not yet returned to the pits, was running through this smoke. It was so thick you couldn't even find the car. You okay, buddy?
I'm fine, Steve. It got close to the lights and I was behind. It was moving around quite a bit and it popped, and as soon as it popped, I could see the flames coming out from underneath, so I just tried to get her stopped, shut down, and get the fire bottles on. I'm fine.
Good driving.
A harrowing experience for KC Spurlock, still in his rookie season as a Nitro Funny Car driver. The final four finds Ed McCulloch and Bruce Larson squaring off, McCulloch getting the lane choice. The other pair is John Force and Mark Oswald, with Oswald having the lane choice by virtue of his quicker elapsed time. If John Force thinks superchargers are expensive, here's another way you can watch your money go up into smoke. A lot of work ahead for KC Spurlock and the crew. We'll be back with more in just a moment. Northwest Nationals, they're working away on the Ford Probe of Bob Glidden, trying to solve the clutch problems. He's got the grinder out, going after the flywheel and the clutch, trying to get this car ready as he faces the Pontiac of Jim Yates in the final four of Pro Stock. Bob Glidden obviously having more fun here in Seattle than he has at a number of races. Here's a guy that's having fun at the age of 61. This is the Golden Greek, Chris Karamessinis at the wheel of the Strange Engineering Special. As we pick up action here in the final four of Top Fuel Eliminator, Karamessinis had himself quite a race in round number 2. From his number 8 qualifying position at a 5:11, he beat Shirley Muldowney in round number 1. His second round opponent, Frank Hawley, qualified number 1 with a 4:98 and beat Russ Collins in his first round race. For Hawley, the newest member of the Krager 4-Second Club, the operator of the drag racing school down in Gainesville, Florida, his ride, Darrell Gwynn's Coors Extra Gold car, just a little bit late off the starting line. Karamessinis was out in front and took the win, a 5:10 to a 5:08, but Frank Hawley remained philosophical.
I'll tell you, I've been thinking about something, mandatory retirement. And I'm going to talk to NHRA and see if we can get that passed and get guys like him out of here, because we just didn't need that to happen to us in the second round.
The opponent for Chris Karamessinis will be Frank Bradley here in the Final Four. He qualified at a 5:09 and beat Jim Head, but Steve filed this report moments ago.
David, very sad news from the Frank Bradley pits. He will not make the round of 4, and we can show you very clearly why. This head was installed, no problem, all torqued down. The crew put this cylinder head on, started to torque down the studs evenly, and suddenly this one pulled right up out of the block, and there was no time to make any necessary repairs. Now, all of these studs are very important, but this one is absolutely critical because of its location, right on the edge at the front of the block. If it's not good and tight, fire comes out of the cylinder, can ruin the block and the head, and be a very dangerous situation. Now, you know what that means. The racer's sentimental favorite, Chris Karamessinis, will waltz through the round of 4 into the finals. And the first to go wish him good luck, Frank Bradley and his crew.
Steve, the one thing that's got to be on Chris Karamessinis' mind right now is, can he duplicate or even improve that great 5:02 he had in the first round when he beat Shirley Muldowney? Here in the Final Four, the Golden Greek has got the break of a lifetime, and he smokes the tires. Losing traction, Karamessinis finds out that the track was wanting. It did not have as much traction as he thought. Therefore, he could not use all the power he had built into that race car. So Karamessinis goes into the final with only a 9:27, obviously giving up lane choice to one of these two drivers. Either Gary Ormsby, the reigning Winston champ and current Winston points leader, or the man closest to him in this year's series chase, Joe Amato. To show you how evenly these two drivers are matched, Joe Amato in the Valvoline Special got the lane choice by only 0.02 of a second over Ormsby in his Castrol car. As these two drivers complete their burnout, let's go to the far end of the racetrack and Steve Evans.
Well, David, it's a darn good thing for Chris Karamessinis that he had a bye run. You can see the bottom pulleys askew on the crankshaft, the belt just about off, and it smoked the tires to boot. Rick, did you go up there just to see how much the track would take?
No, we were really trying to get a 4-second run there. So, I mean, it was just, we wanted to see how fast we could go.
This is not that serious. It can be repaired.
That's fine. I think we can just get it ready for the next round and be happy.
This man is always happy, but especially when he goes into his second final ever.
And this 1990 season is the first time in over 30 years of drag racing that Chris Karamessinis has ever made the final round. Lee Beard, the crew chief for Gary Ormsby, backing him up into the track left after that long burnout. Ormsby qualified third with a 5:01 and beat Don Prudhomme in his first round race. His second round competition, Eddie Hill, beat Kenny Bernstein in the first round after qualifying 11th with a 5:17. Hill was in the near lane in this second round race, and he left the starting line too soon, disqualifying himself, giving the win automatically to Ormsby, who ran a great 5.048. Remember the 1,000. Joe Amato qualified number 2 at a 4.98. He beat Craig Smith in his first round race. His second round opponent was the number 10 qualifier, Dick LaHaye, who had defeated Laurie Johns in his first round confrontation. In that second round race, Amato was in the lane nearest the camera. He had a slight advantage at the start and needed every bit of it as both drivers ran 5:04. 5:04 with a 6 for Amato. That was 0.02 of a second quicker. It gave him the lane choice here in the Final Four over Gary Ormsby. Amato has selected the lane farthest from the camera. Both these drivers know, the two leaders in the Winston Points chase, this could be a pivotal point in the series race this season. A tremendous start. Amato with a big lead, and something goes wrong. Gary Ormsby wins it and is into the championship round. His elapsed time of 5:15 at 280 miles an hour. And for Joe Amato, what a disappointment. His car running very well off the starting line. It charged hard in the first few hundred feet. But as you can see, he comes through the shutdown area with no supercharger drive belt. Let's look again and watch exactly what happened to Amato. His car left very well in the far lane, started to pull ahead strongly ahead of Ormsby. And then at about 330 feet, disaster struck. A pop from the supercharger, and the day was over for Joe Amato. That sets up the finals for the second time this season. Karamessinis against Ormsby. Ormsby with the lane choice. Let's go down to the far end and Steve.
Gary, anytime you stage with Joe Amato the way the Winston points are, it's pressure.
It certainly is. We had a little luck there, looks like, that time, but we won it, and you have to have a little luck to be here.
You had a little good luck, and he had a little bad luck. You're 5:15.
Yeah, it fell off. This car shook real bad on that run. I don't know what was wrong with it, but it just was all over the track and shook, and I thought it was breaking loose. It might have been. I don't know if it's smoking them, but it was definitely vibrating.
See you in the final.
Thank you.
Before we leave down here, Joe Amato,
Good race car.
apparently a blower banged.
Yeah, Steve, the blower came off. It was not a good run. It was, you know, I was ahead of him with whatever part of the track, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, boom, you know. Our racing luck isn't running too good, but we'll be back. We'll make a run at it yet.
You bet. There's plenty of time to do that for him.
Steve, 6 races remain in the Winston Championship Series after the completion of this Jolly Rancher Candies Northwest Nationals. We watch the action in Ed McCulloch's pit as they get that car ready for the Final 4. Let me just remind you that at the end of the race, we're going to be announcing the winner of the Goodyear Eagle Driver of the Race Award. And Goodyear will be giving $1,000 to SEMA, the scholarship fund of the Specialty Equipment Market Association, in that driver's name. Here's a great driver, Bob Glidden, 10-time Winston champion. Now in the Final 4 of Pro Stock Eliminator, racing the surprising Pontiac of Jim Yates. Yates got here by a giant upset of Jerry Ekman in round number 2. Can he make it 2 in a row? Upset, that is. Glidden and Yates concentrating on the starting line. Glidden wanting to do exactly the same thing as every driver does on every run. Yates and Glidden side by side, and the Ford wins and goes to the finals. Glidden a 7.36 second elapsed time, and he needed every bit of it, as Jim Yates gained a tremendous advantage at the starting line. Look again in replay. Watch the Pontiac in the near lane. He put Glidden behind by the time they got to the Christmas tree. But the probe power prevailed by the time they got to the finish line. The Ford was ahead to stay. Just a few feet made the difference at the finish, but it was enough to put Glidden into the championship.
Well, Robert, welcome back to the land of the final rounds.
Well, that's good, Steve. I don't know what we're going to do for the finals.
36, you did well there.
Yes, but let's see what Johnson goes. But we're glad to be in the final. We're glad to get by another round. These guys are all knocking the tree over against me. I think Ricky Smith had a 4-0 light.
Yeah.
It's tough.
It is that. He's getting tougher himself. In fact, let's find out just what Warren Johnson and his opponent have to say about this.
Well, Steve, it sounds like both you and Glidden have already given the race to Johnson. But Mark Powick may have something to say about it. Johnson's got to be the favorite, though. Low qualifier, low ET of the meet, quick ET of eliminations. Everything seems to be going Johnson's way. He's in the far side of the track. Mark Powick in the lane nearest the camera. Powick last to stage. And something goes wrong on Johnson's car. Powick with a single. Into the finals against Glidden. His elapsed time 7:43. His speed 185 miles an hour. Glidden will get to pick the lane. But what on earth happened to Warren Johnson? The car did not move when the tree went green. He broke right at the starting line. The finals in Pro Stock Eliminator finds a Ford versus Oldsmobile battle taking place. Bob Glidden will race Mark Powick, and Glidden will pick the lane. Down at the far end of the racetrack, Steve is caught up with a young man who's got quite a job cut out for him. We're talking about Mark Powick.
Can you go to that line calm, cool, and mow that tree down?
I love racing Bob and Warren. They always get me pumped up, you know, and I'm ready for Bob, believe me. Our old Cutlass has been running good, real consistent, you know, and we're ready for the final, buddy. We're going to get him.
We're pumped up to see it.
Mark Powick looking forward to the championship coming up later.
It's a hole.
Nationals at Seattle International Raceway, and it's time for the Final 4 of Funny Car. This is John Ford, the quickest car on the grounds today at a 5:22. His competition, Mark Oswald. Earlier, Steve had a chance to take a look at one of the busiest men here.
For over 15 years, this man, Phil Rubin, has been a fixture at NHRA Championship drag races. You see, Phil is kind of the Pied Piper of NHRA membership. As the fans file by his tent, he gives them a free copy of National Dragster and tells them all about the many benefits of joining NHRA. And believe me, he'll also take their money on the spot. Cash, credit, checks, money orders, it doesn't matter. Phil just wants them all to join up so that they get the rule book and the pen and the decal and the patch and all the other benefits, including, of course, 48 issues a year of National Dragster. But you see, Phil is not always convenient to find when you want to join. So if you call the number on your screen right now, we'll give you all those benefits. Plus, we'll throw in a free copy of Diamond P's video, Drag Racing 89. So call the number now.
The burnout's completed as John Force. That is Austin Coyle. You see through the front window. He is guiding and directing John towards the starting line. The car rolling forward ever so slowly. In the opposite lane, Mark Oswald doing the same. Two of the best funny cars in the world. The winner here goes on to the championship round. A good start for Force. A little bit of smoke off the tires. Oswald pulls ahead and wins the race. Mark Oswald, a 5:37, upsets the low qualifier and Winston points leader and goes into the championship round. As we look again, you can see that Force in the near lane got the advantage off the starting line. But that disappeared into a cloud of tire smoke as he lost traction ever so briefly. That was enough to allow Oswald to pull ahead, where Mark in the far lane stayed ahead by more than a wheel length, taking the victory. The body coming down on Bruce Larson. He and Ed McCulloch, the other pair in this final four. Larson into the burnout procedure. Not a strong burnout. The car will not come back to idle. That means he cannot get it to go into reverse. Larson sitting there, the engine running very high. You see him flip the throttle. He's trying to get it to come back to idle, but it won't. Larson just shuts the engine off. Let's go down to the far end of the racetrack. Steve Evans with Mark Oswald.
Oh boy, Mark, you almost didn't gun him down.
Yeah, it was close. It was getting loose out there and went over towards the guardrail and had to gather it back up. It was a close race. I saw him all the way.
Still won a 5:37. You're finding the balance in that clutch.
Yeah, it doesn't want to repeat every time. We're having a real problem with it, but we're getting closer.
Better and better every run.
Thank you.
Mark Oswald showing little emotion, but you know inside he has got to be rejoicing. He's in the finals. Here's a man that has got to be aching inside. He has yet to win a race this year. Currently third in the Winston point standings. Here's the number 2 man. He's got a big chance to advance as the leader, John Force, is out of competition at the hands of Mark Oswald. A big break here for McCulloch. A single. He'll be trying for lane choice. He's got to run better than a 5:37. McCulloch 5:45, 263 miles an hour. For Bruce Larson, he knows time is growing short. Only 6 races remain in his quest for a share of the $1 million postseason payout. The finals of Funny Car finds Ed McCulloch against Mark Oswald. Mark will pick his lane when he races the 8th. Meantime, back in the pit area, it looks like a supercharger exchange service. Crew Chief Lee Beard preparing a new supercharger for Gary Ormsby in his final round race against Chris Karamazini. That's what the pit crew could be called as they get his car ready for the finals against Gary Ormsby and Top Fuel. A lot of people offering their skills to Crew Chief Lance Larson. Right now, let's go down to Steve Evans at the far end of this racetrack.
Well, David, with the pro finals just minutes away, I'm going to go out on a limb and make some predictions. Now, I know I haven't done this in years, and those who remember my last predictions know why it has taken me so long to get my confidence back. Here's how I see it. Chris Karamazini has a slim shot against Gary Ormsby. I say he does because Ormsby's computer is not telling him why that car fell off. They put the fix-all on the car, a brand new blower. They're going for low elapsed time of the event, which is worth 50 bonus points. They could smoke the tires. If they do, the Greek is gone. In Funny Car, Ed McCulloch is going to have to leave, get a starting line advantage, a whole shot on Mark Oswald. Candies and Hughes has a handle on the clutch power combination. Mark will win if he can leave even close to the ace. In Pro Stock, everybody wants to see the new kid on the block in the winner's circle, Mark Powett. He'll win sooner or later, but not today. Bob Glidden has his confidence back, and he's hungry to establish himself in the Winston points. That's how I see it.
I'd cross my fingers, too. I certainly wouldn't take you to Vegas knowing your record. Here is the final in Pro Stock Eliminator. Mark Powick in the near lane, the Ford in the far lane, the classic battle between makes. Here it is an Oldsmobile against a Ford, both limited to 500 cubic inches maximum, running on racing gasoline. Using the Lenco-type transmission, the cars with drivers on board matched at 2,350 pounds each. Powick, the last to stage. A good start for both cars. And Clinton goes into the winner's circle. Rusty and Billy with the high five. We haven't seen that since his last victory at the Arizona Nationals at Phoenix back in February of this year. Bob Glidden powering past a hole shot by Mark Powick, driving away as he has done all day from his competitors. Glidden in the Ford Probe regaining the championship form that carried him to 10 Winston titles. In replay, you can see Powick trying to pull back on Glidden, but unable to do so. Steve's with the champion.
Yeah, it doesn't matter that he's won over 75 national events. When you've been a little cool, it's nice to get hot again.
Well, I'll tell you, Steve, what a great win. What a great win. Come here, Mark. You know, it's incredible. I don't know how many we've won, but this is the first one we've won for a long, long time. Nice race. Nice race.
You're going to win one someday.
Honest, Steve, you know, it's our third final this year. One of these days, it's got to happen, man. You know, I couldn't lose to a better guy. Bob's really been struggling this year, and I'm glad to see him coming back. I just wish it was me this time around.
He had you by just a couple of hundredths off the mark, but you had the muscle.
I knew he'd be on time. We've been running a little bit better than him. I've been driving horrible all weekend, but, you know, we just got the brakes here. We got the good luck that we needed to win.
Congratulations to Bob Glidden. Condolences to Mark Powick again.
Just for the record, this is Bob Glidden's 78th career victory. The Pro Stock point standings finds Warren Johnson continuing to hold the lead. Jerry Ekman in second. Bob Glidden with his victory moves into third. Larry Morgan fourth, and Darrell Alderman in number 5 with 6 races remaining. Funny car competition with Mark Oswald coming up next. Northwest Nationals at Seattle International Raceway, and Mark Oswald at the wheel of the Candies and Hughes Ford Probe, following the instructions of his crewman D. Gadd as to the proper spot to stage on this racetrack. Ed McCulloch in the near lane doing the same with his crew chief Bernie Federle, who puts him where he wants him and then walks to the back of the car to watch this final round of racing. Oswald has got to be considered the favorite. He's got the lane choice, meaning he had the quicker elapsed time in the previous round. A tremendous race at half track. And Mark Oswald returns to the winner's circle for the first time since the Mid-South Nationals at Memphis in May. 5:40 his elapsed time, his speed 275 miles an hour in a classic match with Ed McCulloch. Both drivers, identical reaction times off the starting line. Here it was a matter of having the clutch set just right as Oswald powered past McCulloch in the middle of the race course and then streaked to the finish line with more than a car length lead. Our final pair getting ready. It is Chris Karamessinis against Gary Ormsby. This race is a rematch of the Le Grand National at Saint-Air near Montreal, Canada, earlier this season. On that rain-delayed race on a Monday morning, Gary Ormsby defeated Chris Karamessinis. Let's go to the far end of the racetrack and Steve.
It's just been a matter of time, Mark, but nobody thought it'd take this long.
It's taken too long. It was a good day for motorcraft here with Bob and myself both winning. I'm real happy.
A 5:40 in the final. It was a perfect combination.
Yeah, we didn't really know. We wanted to make sure we got down the racetrack. We've struggled for so long now, and, you know, it finally paid off. Ed was tough. He always is. You know, I'm always nervous about racing him.
And I think when you get this kind of a combination back, it gives you confidence on the starting line. Everybody relaxes a bit.
It's the biggest thing people don't realize. When your car's running bad and you don't go very many rounds in actual competition, it's harder and harder for the driver to get good, and the competition rounds is what makes you good.
You've done good today.
Thank you.
Well, maybe good for Mark's sponsor. It's also good for Steve's predictions. Bear in mind, Steve, you're now 2 for 2. In the funny car point standings, John Force has the lead. McCulloch is second. Bruce Larson is falling further back in third. Mark Oswald fourth, and Casey Spurlock number 5. The finals in Top Fuel Eliminator. Ormsby with the lane choice in the far lane. His competition, Chris Karamessinis. Remember, he had some problems on his final 4 single and was forced to shut it off as some blower drive problems set in, and they got them fixed. Ormsby with the advantage. And the mechanical problems continue for Chris Karamessinis. In fact, he is on fire. The parachute is out. He's bringing the car to a safe stop as Gary Ormsby has taken his 2nd win in a row. The new supercharger obviously paying off. His time of 5:09.282. Standing up in the cockpit, Karamessinis, ever the showman, bringing the car off the course, smoke continuing to billow off the engine. As we look again, maybe we can detect what went wrong. Ormsby had a slight advantage at the starting line. You see the smoke coming out of the headers on Karamessinis' car. He had problems the moment he hit the throttle. As they went on down track, those problems magnified themselves as Ormsby headed to the finish line and the championship. For Karamessinis, as he watched Ormsby pull away, he felt the heat on the back of his neck. The engine exploded into a ball of flame. Then the fire died down, allowing Chris to get the parachute out and bring the car to a halt. So the Greeks sacrificed all in an effort to beat Gary Ormsby, but it was to no avail. Steve?
Obviously, the Greeks crew did something wrong, that huge explosion, but he's A-OK. The fire truck's over there, no harm to the Greek whatsoever, just to his wallet and his motor. But Gary Ormsby, you guys did everything right. 5:09.
Yeah, I ran pretty good. We had a little problem here, too. I don't know what it was, but this thing banged on me as I shut down there.
Really, you'd put a new blower on it. That's kind of risky, but something you had to do.
Well, we had to, Steve. You know, it didn't run. It dropped cylinders on us semifinals, and we don't like to do that, particularly in the final, but we had to do it. Just wasn't putting out the boost we needed.
I know you wanted low ET for those extra 51 spin points. Not to be, but still a pretty good harvest.
Hey, it was a good showing for it. I'm proud of my team. They did an excellent job this weekend for me.
Did an excellent job for them.
Thank you.
Gary Ormsby, the winner here in Seattle.
And Steve, he continues to march on in his quest for back-to-back series championships. Ormsby extended his lead over Amato. LaHaye is in third. Laurie Johns fourth. And Gene Snow rounds out the Top Fuel top 5. As the celebration continues at the far end of the track, in our opinion, the Goodyear Eagle driver of the race is Chris Karamessinis. Goodyear will be sending a check for $1,000 in his name to the scholarship fund of the Specialty Equipment Market Association from a very good driver for a very good cause. From Seattle International Raceway, for Steve Evans, I'm Dave McClellan saying so long for now. The 1990 NHRA Jolly Rancher Candies.
Similar device.